Hey guys, welcome back to Kingdom of Airsoft. We are on the tech bench today for another installation video, and this time we are going to look at the BTC Spectre. So this little video will show you how to install one of these bad boys in your recoil. So I'm going to walk you through my own kind of installation procedure so that you guys can get exactly the same results. So the way I do it means that we don't need to glue the wires in down here at all. Everything just holds in place nicely. So the first thing we're going to want to do is organize these cables. So we're going to have our motor wire, the negative motor wire on top, like so. We're going to have our red signal wire in the middle, and then our negative power line at the bottom. So then we can go ahead and just put it in the gearbox shell like this. Now, just here, we're going to put a bend in the wires, like that. And that will allow us to quite easily push our wires down into place. So the first one will be our negative power line, and then our signal wire. So I just lay that over the top slightly, so we're not kind of piling them one on top of the other, we're kind of laying that along the top and then down our routing channel here. And then on top of that we've got our motor wire. So we can just route the motor wire straight out the bottom like so. Now when we get to this stage here, I like to put in my screwdriver into the pinhole and just gently push the wires away from the pinhole like that. Now this is the time where we're going to put in our screw. So this is the screw from the switch assembly, and that's just going to go in like that, and that'll hold the board in place. So we don't put a screw here, there is a little note on the board. So when we get to this position here, we've screwed our board down and routed the wires out the front channel. So now what we're going to do, we're going to take the signal wire that's in the middle, and you see just here I have dremeled out a little slot. So normally the wires would kind of just sit in the top here, just above our screw hole. So I've dremeled away about 1.5 mm down here, all the way to the bottom, and that will allow us to route the wires into that little hole there. So we got our signal wire first, so it's going from the middle to now the bottom, and then we put our negative power line in, and this slot here should be exactly the same width as the diameter of the wire. That's how to measure it up. We're just going to make sure that's nice and snug in place, and then we can put our positive motor line on top. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pull these taut, and that's going to give us the correct length for the wires here. So we can just bend that in place. And now these are all here. That is the basic installation all done. So this would be the point where you can hook up the battery and check the Bluetooth functionality. So download the app onto your Android or iPhone, start the app, plug the battery in, and that should find it. There have been a few issues with some of these, some of the latest batch of Spectres. Occasionally the Bluetooth doesn't connect properly. Just make sure you try it with a full battery, keeping the phone quite close to the Spectre. So once you've paired that up, you'll be able to check all the settings and change anything, but the main thing is just to try and connect and see if that works. So now the final stage, once we've checked that, the final stage is just to hook the wires together. So the signal wire here is going to get soldered on to the main positive power line. So I'm going to chuck my soldering station on. Hear a bit of a rumbling in the background maybe. Now the way I do this is I measure about halfway along the curve at the back here, and that's where I make the cut. So we're going to bring our signal line underneath the two power lines and then over the top like so. So here we have the signal wire has now come a full spiral around the two wires, and it's laying on top of our positive line. So I'm going to cut them both. I've got the small signal wire in the crook in the top of my wire stripper, so that's going to cut through that wire and then allow me to strip the cable just here. So we've got two cuts on the insulation, and now we're just going to slice that open and then use our tweezers to peel that back. And now at this point we can pretty much just cut away our Dean's connector off the end. I'm going to chuck that, and we'll be soldering on our own genuine Dean's Ultra connector onto whatever battery adapter this gun is having. So we can discard this bit of wire, and then all we have to do is strip the insulation off here and then solder the two together. So I'm going to place a little bit of blue roll down to catch any flux spatters. So we're going to apply a bit of our regular soldering flux onto the wire there. I'm going to get my handy reverse tweezers to hold that in place. So now we can tin that part, tin that part, and clean off our wire. Now I'm going to grab another bit of blue roll from my roll. There goes the Spectre box. And just wipe away the excess flux from these two wires. And now we can make the join. So we're going to hold this wire in place, and it shouldn't take long to make this join at all. Just a second with the soldering iron. So that's going to allow us to hold the wire in place. Let's see if I can get this at a good angle for both me and the camera. That's going to allow us to hold our signal wire in place quite nicely without burning our fingers. So just a second or two, and that's the join complete. So now, put our tweezers away, just trim off any tiny little protrusions so it's all nice and flush and sitting like that. So I'm going to go ahead and cover this with some heat shrink. just like that. And we will heat this up with my handy heat gun. So we'll shrink that in place. So this is 3M heat shrink, very high quality stuff. You can get it from Farnell's or RS Components. And we'll just do the other side. Oh, get to the center again. And the last step is just to apply another little bit of heat shrink to hold all 3 wires in place. So we've got 2 wires. This is a bit of Dean's heat shrink, all nicely pre-cut, and it's just the perfect size to go right up against there and hold everything in place. So with the wires sitting like this and everything screwed together, the wires will sit nicely against the gearbox shell, and they're not going to really come away from here and in front of the pinion gear. So the only other thing to really know when you're putting the Spectre, when you're reassembling the gearbox, is just to keep an eye out on this little lever here. So when you're putting the selector plate back in place, I use the front of it just to push that lever away, hold it down, slot the selector plate on, and then reverse it, and it'll stay nicely like that. So that's in the full auto position, that's semi, and then that's safe forward. But it's just going to hold in nicely like this. Putting the trigger back is pretty standard. We just get our recoil trigger, chuck the spring on, hook the spring on the little notch there, and place it in. So I just lift the Spectre board just a hair, slot the spring in, push it down, and then reassemble the rest of the gearbox as normal. So that's all there is to it, really. On the end, this one is going to have a CTR stock mod, so we will just solder a Dean's adapter with some flexible Dean's Ultra 16 gauge wire onto the end of this, and that's going to give our power in. We'll hook it up with a nice blueprinted motor, and yeah, this gun is going to be a bit of a beast. So, as usual, if you have any questions, chuck them down below, and any comments, or if you like the video, chuck us a wee like, and yeah, if you'd like to see more, subscribe to the channel. And that's it, so I will see you guys next time. Cheerio!